It's cold in here today, and the window's still up. Good day and gratitude, family. This is Face the Nation with Bold and Unchained, and we are back again with another reading of our reading of racial violence in Kentucky, 1865 to 1940. And we apologize for the tardiness. However, we have a video to watch that I had to find, and it's also a very worthy channel of Black media also. And if I may begin, Bold and Unchained is here to assist Black America and Black media in the uncovering and the confronting of the many agendas, the many projects and operations and sabotages and events that have been orchestrated and plotted against Black America. Bold and Unchained is here first and foremost for the welfare and the sanity of Black America. Because I know that light be glaring and stuff. Bold and Unchained is here solely for the welfare and the sanity of Black America. The narratives that have been pushed against Black America for the many decades, centuries, must be accounted for. It must be held accountable, those who are guilty and those who are benefiting. You benefiting, you must be held accountable for the things that have been done. I know, we all know that white America, white America claims to be remorseful and claims to be empathetic to Black America. However, your actions don't say that. Your actions don't say that to us. Right today, this video clip that we're going to watch, I just need it up a little bit. My feet get cold, I'll just let it down again. We're going to watch a video clip. Even as we read and learn. Oh, let me read my copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Copyright disclaimer under 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for the fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. The fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. And I gotta work on the rest of it. But even as we read Black American, as we relearn and remember, some of us learning for the first time, what has really, truly happened to Black America. See, this whole diabolical scheme where now everybody forget. Everybody can forget and go on with their life. Go on with the New World Order. Everybody can forget the trauma and the torture, the dismembering, the burning, the literal roasting of Black America. Hanging from trees. Nobody has to remember. No. The white woman has been, absolved? As she was one of the main catalysts. She was one of the main reasons and supporters. The right woman, the right-hand man, right-hand woman, however you want to call them. And now she should be right alongside, if not more, to right this wrong. So white America, you don't get to claim you doing so much to help us out no more. No. The whole societies, all of you, and I ain't even up there. We ain't up there with all y'all. We ain't in y'all income brackets. We not in y'all educational brackets. But we down here seeing that y'all keep sacrificing us. And we want to let you know that no, you're going to quit sacrificing us. You're going to sacrifice yourself. Because even as, what's ironic to me, is even as we learn Black America, and we going through a new awakening, in case you didn't know, we going through a new awakening. Even as we learn, relearn, remember about our history, because we're the descendants of them. We're the descendants of them that were tortured, literally torn apart. This video right here, he's a descendant of those who committed the injury, the crime. And don't you know, white America, how dare y'all continually deny, ignore, benign neglect, how you so quickly and steadfastly moved in with your manifest destiny. Now you know you got Black America between a rock and a hard place. You know you taking Black America to some newfound waters. And not one time have any of you said, for the love of Black America. Not have none of you said, pay them their reparations. Even though you know half of us that's the weak-minded or most vulnerable gonna go buy a whole bunch of Cadillacs and shoes. And ain't nobody gonna have no gas soon, because it's gonna be a whole new autonomous world out here. But instead of y'all, for the love of Black people, and all you done stole, all you done took, all you done murdered and genocided, and I'm just speaking of America. I ain't speaking of outside where you done touched and tortured. But right here in America, where we at with you, for all the love. You have not one time, white America. Yeah, you white woman. They your sons. They is your sons, your husbands, your daddies. So who giving birth to them? Who giving birth to these men? Because it sure ain't us. Now, I heard about, we all hearing about it. Your little blue bracelets you got going around there, and you're discontent because Black America is sick of y'all shit. You've been lying to us, white America, for the whole time. Just using us, lying to us so y'all can stay comfortable. And now we're not trying to hear it no more. We're not trying to hear it no more. You want our attention, and you want us to be sincere to you, you need to be sincere to us. And I'm on my family side. I'm on my people side. If they don't want to deal with you no more, with white folks no more, then so be it. Because, hey, we all got to live here. What you going to do? What you going to do? Fly? You going to fly out of the atmosphere? That's where you're trying to go anyway. But other than that, we all going to live here anyway on this earth, on this plane. We hardly ever see the Amish, but we know they're here. And so it's going to be with us. And y'all asses, everything you done stole and done took, and you refuse to, you got to repent and repay. Oh, yes, you do. Quiet as it's kept. You got to repent and repay. It's coming out, the woodwork. And y'all going to have to be sincere, because truly it's out of Black America's hands. Yeah, we know to pull back. We know to pull back. And a lot of us unconsciously, subconsciously, we know that our ancestors, cosmic energy, Mother Gaia, sick of white folks. The earth literally sick of y'all. You might not have done heard it. I don't know. Maybe ain't nobody told you yet. But since you've been here on this planet, you've done more damage. You have literally disrupted life itself. Yeah. Then you claim that you're bringing jobs. You claim that you improving the world. But no, you ain't white America. You're not improving the world. We leave it up to you. It won't even be no more life. Period. Nobody life. I can't even say it's going to be marine life and animal life with y'all. We can't say that because y'all so destructive. And the thing about it, you done turned everything around and made the world think that Black people are destructive. Black people are lazy. Excuse me. Well, I'm here to tell you, Black America is motherfucking sick of y'all. Black America is near the breaking point because of what white America has done to the psyche of the Black man. We ain't got that many strong Black men out here. Don't act like y'all asses don't know. Y'all want to keep excusing why we in such a terrible state. We ain't never been this bad before. Y'all the one refused to call out why we like this. You know what Neely Fuller said. We not in y'all education bracket. We not in y'all financial bracket. Y'all credit brackets up there. So we know y'all know. What Neely said? Play like we done if y'all want to. Y'all motherfuckers been sending y'all asses in them positions 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And you still sitting there making excuses for why Black America is so much more fucked up. If you do not understand white supremacy and how it works, everything else will only confuse you. And see, it cut off my picture. I printed it off a couple years ago, but it cut it off. But I will go try to print the full thing. Yeah, it's a photo. I printed off in paper, but you want it photoed. And so that's what I did. And it cut it off. But you understand, Neely Fuller said white supremacy racism is controlling every aspect of our life. And y'all in them higher positions, y'all know it. Y'all know it. You know why Black men is out here running amok, stampeding. Just stampeding off the cliff. The cliff. Stampeding off the cliff. This the cliff, just running right off the cliff. Y'all know why. Ain't been no healing. Black America ain't had no healing. Black America ain't even had no hibernation. No isolation from white America. You're always there. You never leave. You always there. White America, you are always there with your bullshit. Spying. Intimidating Black America. Letting it be known that, yeah, everything is yours, and don't mention nothing about no losses because you the boss. That's what's wrong with Black America. Yeah. Don't nobody want to say it. Don't nobody want to say it. But you might as well say it, because hell, who cares after this? This is the end. We at the end. Life as we know it is over. Life as we know it is over. What is we so timid for now? Why are we so timid now? Life as we know it is over. Things will never be the same. Why y'all acting like things gonna be the same with white folks? Oh, you think they finna get better? Oh, we think they gonna get better? What resources, what hope, what help do you possibly think white America gonna give to us in the New World Order? Anybody? Any other peoples? There's a lot of different peoples in the world, a whole lot of them over here with us. But what are they gonna give to us in the New World Order? That's why we must unite with us. We must reconcile with ourselves. We ain't got no business reconciling with nobody else. We sure don't. Them days is over. They need to try to reconcile with us. And you know how they got to do that. Repent and repay. Other than that, get the hell up off our backs and stop staring down our throats. What we talking about? What's going on with Black people? What they say? What they doing? Where they at? Why they going over there? Leave Black people the hell alone. Because we ain't got but a short while before your whole new futuristic world just roll out on everybody's ass. Roll out on everybody's ass in America. Everybody finna get some of this oppression. What make America think as long as we hold the Black man down, as long as we hold the Black family down, we gonna be all right. As long as we better than the nigga, we gonna be all right. Don't you see we all fucked now? Don't you see the entire world literally is fucked now? Especially America. Babylon is falling, burn, fall, burn. Because y'all, nobody in society. Yeah, we had our few John Browns. What's the other man's name? Elliot something other, Poole, I think. If that was him. But we know Harper's Ferry. So you had a few. But see that right there may as well been the illusion. That may as well been the illusion to distract us. Because while it kept our attention and we thought it meant sincerity, the rest of y'all asses was just planning, manipulating, and just being conniving and thieving Black America. Yeah, that's what you were doing, and you still doing it. Even as we sat here today and fight for the liberation of Black America, we fight for justice for our ancestors who were tortured by your people. Y'all still saying, no, we don't get no reparations to nobody. We ain't give nobody no reparations if it's Black people. You still refuse to do it. That's why it's out of our control, see, because we too traumatized. We are so traumatized, and the only thing Black America do at this point is get the fuck away from white America. And that's it, that's all. Maybe when white America is sincere with Black America, then maybe we can, kind of get together. But for all this talk, let's band together, let's save America, and let's fight for this and let's fight for that and stuff. No, we're not doing it no more. Sure ain't. Y'all gonna have to fight y'all own battles. Because guess what? We gotta scrimp and save to try to sustain ourselves. Oh yeah, y'all claim it's hard for y'all. And your ass making what, $34,000 a year? And you claim it's hard for you? Try making $12,000 a year, 4 kids, all your bills and stuff. So, miss me. Yeah, miss me with all that, because I don't even care no more. So don't. All I want is for my people to unite with us. With us. If at some point we all on the front line against the robotic dogs, the robotic woman, what's her name? Sophia. Then there's Sophia Bing 78. There's a baby robot named San Diego, a little bitty baby robot. Gonna kick all y'all kids' ass in school. What you say? Yeah, it ain't no joke. Everybody been so damn busy, corralling Black people, manipulating Black people and stuff. You done set up here and let mankind and humanity be wrapped up into this whole new futuristic world. And you know who is finna be recording and targeting. So what we gonna be saying is robot racial profiling, robot profiling. It ain't that much longer before Trump is in there. Project 2025 finna kick in. I know y'all feel the vices on it now. Yeah. So the only thing we can do, Black America, is figure out how the hell is we finna put this together. Because we can. Oh yeah, we can. We can find them little substitutions. So what? Hell, we got to teach them babies to read online like this. That's what we going to do. Now, they won't be up at midnight when I'm doing my reading. But they little asses, they'll be up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning when you reading Black heroes. How about that? Something just going to have to be done all across the board. We ain't got no room to move. Didn't nobody leave us no room to move. It's a shame. It's a motherfucking shame. It's pitiful. And then that pastor talking about the Bible is our, he did ask if the Bible was sufficient, if it was sufficient text for racial reconciliation. And no, it ain't. Pastor, this is the text for racial reconciliation. Red Summer 1919. The Awakening of Black America. That's the text for racial reconciliation. See, Black America, we're going to have to stop letting our pastors and our brothers and our sisters sway us into forgetting who to be loyal to. What you think we're gonna do to these people today? They weren't there. They didn't do it. We weren't there. It didn't happen to us, but we sure feel it. Oh yeah, the generational trauma. See, something runs within us and them. Something's running in us, and something's running in them too. You know. But this video we're going to watch right here, even as we learned about this right here, one of the clan sisters' descendants, he's against reparations to us. And I know he know what happened, what's still happening, and why it'll never stop. So let's find the video. And then we are going to read, because we are on chapter 7. Yep, we on chapter 7. How many chapters in this book? All right. Let's see how many chapters. We just want to know. All we got to do is go to the front. Let me see here. Oh, 8. No, 9. Okay, it's 9. All right, let's get to this video right fast. It's not very long. Oh, and I did want to let you know that this video is coming from a very worthy Black media channel, and it's called African Diaspora, the African Diaspora Network, and you can see it on there. And this is Sister Demetria K.
Diaspora. Download our African Diaspora News Channel app now on Google Play and Apple App Store. Stay informed with authentic and diverse perspectives, breaking news, and cultural insights. Immerse yourself in a community that celebrates unity, resilience, and progress. Experience the vibrancy of the diaspora at your fingertips. Don't miss out. Empower your perspective today. Search African Diaspora News Channel and join the conversation.
Old Edward Blum is at it again. Of course, you guys might remember his name. He is the attorney that infamously challenged the educational component of affirmative action and got it dismantled. Now, he went to the Supreme Court with Asian students, basically saying it's not fair for colleges to admit people due to race, because Asians, they are smarter than everybody else, and they're not getting in because I guess they're not Black. When we know that didn't help Black people, it mostly helped white people. But nevertheless, they are feeling the effects of that. Okay, let's get to why I'm really here. Now, Edward Blum says that he is going to challenge reparations in New York. Of course, the governor there, Kathy Hochul, said that they are going to commission a study to study reparations to see if anything is owed to Black descendants of slavery there in New York. Well, this is what the New York Sun reported him saying. He argues that such measures would violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Blum has stated that any legislation that awards reparations or benefits based on race or ethnicity will be vigorously challenged in federal court, and that the racial proxies, including ancestral servitude and past discrimination, will be challenged as well. So he's saying, if y'all think y'all gonna get some money because your ancestors were, put through the horrors of slavery, well, I got another thing coming for you. Now, it also sounds like he's challenging the reparations that was awarded for those in Evanston, Illinois. So we'll see how that works. But I want to say this to us as Black people. Clearly, he and a lot of people that look like him and a lot of people who just don't look like us do not want descendants of slavery to get reparations in any way, shape, or form, even though people like him have gotten reparations. Asians, the Japanese, they got reparations for the things that happened to them. And I would say this, the institution of slavery here in America was very brutal and horrible. In fact, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said that what Black people have gone through here in America will make a brass monkey shed a tear. That's how brutal it was. But yet, Edward Blum and a whole bunch of people think that Black people should not get it. So this is what we're going to have to do, okay? Let's think of the Asians, for example. The Asians, they got their thing airtight, right? They work together. They practice group economics. They are in unity. And when I say Asians, yes, I lump them all together because they don't say, well, you're Japanese, I'm not going to mess with you. Oh, you're, Vietnamese, I'm not going to mess with you. And I'm speaking about us as Black Americans. I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm talking about Black Americans. We have to practice group economics, okay? We have to get on the same page. We have to stop being disjointed about everything, whether it's politics, it's gender, and a whole host of other things. We got to say, you know what? We are all we got. And until we unify, white supremacy, because that's what that operates out of, right? They're going to continue to try to stop us in every way, shape, or form. And even those Democrats that we put in the office, they feel emboldened and say, no, I'm not going to do nothing just for Black people. No, because they know we're not unified. They know we argue about everything under the sun. Tomato, right? They know we do that. So we got to stop doing that because that's what Asians do. They just say, we're going to put our differences aside and we're going to move as one so we can get what we need to get, which is how they were able to get that Asian hate crime bill just like that. They didn't do no studies. They didn't have no arguing. They put it, before Congress and they said, yeah, we got you. And they signed it right away. And now they have protection against anything, racial. If you say something to them, if you do something to them, they have a specific bill for them. So we have to kind of follow their lead and do what our ancestors used to do back in the day. Our ancestors were on one accord. Off of the plantation, especially. That's how they built all the Wall Streets and the Allentowns and the Rosewoods and the Slocums and all the other Black entities that our ancestors built because they were on the same page because they knew they were all they had. The white folks wasn't going to mess with them. Well, they messed with them, but y'all know what I mean, right? They knew that they had to do it together and they were better together. So we got to get there. If we don't, then you'll have people like Edward Blum going up to the Supreme Court and saying, I don't think they should have that because it's a race thing. It's not fair and all that other stuff. So anyway, y'all tell me what you think of that. And for more insightful commentary, please subscribe to this channel and my channel, The Demetra K Show here on YouTube. Peace.
And there we have it. Yep. And Edward Blum, he's not the only one. He's not the only one that's no, don't give them reparations. That's fighting hell and high water so that Black America don't get reparations. Even though they know reparations is very much due and it's deserved. But see, the thing is, because it's Black America, that's the reason why they don't want us to get reparations because we're Black America. If we was any other peoples, even those that don't deserve it, oh yeah, you get it. You get it immediately, right away. They hit that red button. But because it's Black America, yeah, they don't want us to get it. And that's why we need to stop giving a fuck about what's going to happen to white America when cosmic energy and Mother Gaia just stop. Worry about Black people sometime. Worry about our own folks. But see, as long as white America know, as long as we always feel a softness towards them or feel a sympathy, a pity, a love for them, they okay. They okay. Yeah, as long as we always feel that forgiveness for them, they don't give a damn about what we ain't healed from, what we ain't never had no therapy from. All the shit that we went through. Hell, we my town where I'm from didn't get running water for black people till I was what, 10? Yeah, I was 10 years old. Yeah, when they put the apartments there with the one running water inside the apartment. So, you know, we all done lived that post-struggle because white America feel like, oh, we're going to progress just a little bit in humanity, just a little bit in humanity, just a little bit in humanity, just a little bit in humanity. But you swiping whole generations out in nothing but murderous, evil actions. And then you refuse to own up to it. You refuse to pay. Y'all don't want black America to be on an even footing. You still don't want to even the field for black America. Then I say, hell yeah, black America. Let's do for us. Chapter 7. Oh, and yeah, this is Racial Violence in Kentucky, 1865 to 1940. Chapter 7, A Sacrifice Upon the Altar of the Law, 1875 to 1899. When a rumor began circulating in Mayfield, Kentucky on January the 12th, 1898, that a young white girl named Tennie Bailey, Tennie Bailey, had been raped, attention centered on Robert Blanks, Blanks, a black man in his mid-30s. Realizing that being accused of such a crime could lead to his lynching, Blanks quickly fled the state and successfully eluded the authorities for 4 months. Mayfield's police chief eventually tracked the accused rapist to Cairo, Illinois, where he was working in a strawberry field when he was arrested. After having Blanks placed in jail, the chief requested that the black man be returned to Mayfield to stand trial. The governor of Illinois agreed, but Governor William O. Bradley, who had pledged to end lynching during his administration and who was extremely sensitive to the racial violence that had occurred in Mayfield in December 1896, denied the request. In a dramatic statement, he said, "The wholesale slaughter of Negroes by mobs in Graves County and the failure to punish their murderers satisfies me that to have this man sent back there would be to have him sent to his death, and that he could not obtain even a semblance of a fair trial. If guilty, he deserves death, but punishment should be inflicted by law and not by mob. I decline to issue the requisition." And he didn't send him back. The governor's action had probably saved the black man's life. When first commenting on the rape and capture of Blanks, the white newspaper wrote in a matter-of-fact manner that once Blanks returned to Mayfield, the usual result will follow, as the crime was one of the most heinous ever perpetrated here. The Kentucky Standard, a black weekly published in Lexington, wrote that the governor had once again demonstrated beyond any doubt his concern for the race. What went unreported, however, was Bradley's decision to have the black man sent to Louisville until he was assured that Blanks would be protected when he was returned to Mayfield for trial. The governor informed Graves County officials of this action and told them to proceed with plans for the trial. The governor also warned them against any violence occurring during the trial. To ensure the prisoner's safety, Bradley sent along state troops to protect the accused rapist. Bradley agreed that the trial could be held in Mayfield, but insisted that the jury come from Hickman County. Protected by 50 guards, Blanks arrived in Mayfield on July the 5th for his trial. As the local newspaper stated, several hundred people were at the depot to witness the strange spectacle of a company of soldiers coming to Mayfield to save the neck of a brutal Negro from a mob. And them your local newspapers called him a brutal Negro. And it probably was one of them damn white men that raped her. Blanks had 3 attorneys, including Augustus E. Wilson, the future governor. Nevertheless, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. 6 months after Blanks' conviction, Attorney Wilson argued before the Kentucky Court of Appeals that because of the sensational rumors published in the newspapers, it had been impossible for his client to receive a fair trial in Graves County. The same would have been true, Wilson said, if the case had been moved to Ballard, Hickman, Fulton, or Carlisle counties. Whites living in these areas of Western Kentucky, the attorney explained, almost universally agreed that Blanks was guilty of raping a young white female, a crime regarded with high emotions. And said Wilson, the death sentence should be overturned because the court had refused to grant a change of venue from Graves County. Wilson informed the justices that when Blanks and the soldiers arrived in Mayfield, they were surrounded by a great throng of hundreds of men and boys. And they all were shouting, "Hang him! Take him out!" The Court of Appeals rejected the motions presented by Wilson, dismissing his argument that prejudiced newspapers' accounts played any part in inciting the public's indignation over Blanks' alleged offense. Well, he know damn well the newspapers was the reasons why. And see, that's the thing about it. The newspapers went into action as soon as they heard that a black man had injured, insulted, touched, stared, looked at a white woman. They went into action. They went to planning. How we gonna lynch him? What we gonna lynch him with? Where we gonna lynch him? Or are we gonna lynch him? And sometimes they did this 4 or 5 days in between. When they find out the word that it was a black man, they on the hunt. And whether it's 3 days, 5 days, 6 days, whatever, they start sending out their newspaper clips to other counties and letting people know that it's going to be a lynching when such and such is found. And that's how all them people knew. On Friday, such and such day, Leo Frank would be lynched. They would let the schools out for the kids to come. Free train rides to get to the location. Yeah. They saw that as a spectacle. The people we can't see our lives without. The people Black America cannot live without. Lynching you. Lynching Black America. Manipulating Black America. Making a fool out of Black America. Harming you, putting you through torture and pain and hell. So much trauma. And then have the nerve today to wish and say, I wish I could do it again. That's one black bitch I sure would hang up. Where you can't. As soon as cosmic energy and Mother Gaia snap it shut, all y'all asses finna be done. You should have been sincere with Black people. And when I look around now and I see society now, I see the world now, all the destruction. All the destruction in the world. Yeah, even the destruction, you didn't have no hand in, America. You might didn't have no hand in it, but you damn sure had some wind in it. Yeah, don't stand behind us. Don't stand behind Black America. Sure don't, baby. Okay. What went unreported, however, was Bradley's decision to have the black man sent to Louisville until he was sure that Blanks would be protected when he was returned to Mayfield for trial. The governor informed Graves County officials of this action and told them to proceed with plans for the trial. The governor also warned them against any violence occurring during the trial. To ensure the prisoner's safety, Bradley sent along state troops to protect the accused rapist. Bradley agreed that the trial could be held in Mayfield, but he insisted that the jury come from Hickman County. Protected by 50 guards, Blanks arrived in Mayfield on July the 5th for his trial. Check this out again. As the local newspaper stated, and this is the local newspaper in Mayfield, because it says right here, protected by 50 guards, Blanks arrived in Mayfield, Kentucky on July the 5th for his trial. As the local newspaper stated, several hundred people were at the depot to witness the strange spectacle of a company of soldiers coming to Mayfield to save the neck of a brutal Negro from a mob. You need to shut that whole motherfucker down if it's still that same newspaper standing, even if they renamed it. But it's still the same. But I know y'all ain't got no other newspapers and stuff there. I know. You're going to have to do something eventually, though. Watch and see. Blanks had 3 attorneys, including Augustus E. Wilson, the future governor, because he was running for governor. Or he was going to run for governor. Nevertheless, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. 6 months after Blanks' conviction, Attorney Wilson argued before the Kentucky Court of Appeals, and this was a good argument, that because of the sensational rumors published in the newspapers, it had been impossible for his client to receive a fair trial in Graves County. The same thing would have been true, Wilson said, if the case had been moved to Ballard, Hickman, Fulton, or Carlisle counties. Whites living in these areas of Western Kentucky, the attorney explained, almost universally agreed that Blanks was guilty of raping a young white female, a crime regarded with high emotions. And said Wilson, the death sentence should be overturned because the court had refused to grant a change of venue from Graves County. Wilson informed the justices that when Blanks and the soldiers arrived in Mayfield, they were surrounded by a great throng of hundreds of men and boys. Hundreds! And they all were just shouting, hang him, take him out. Can you imagine? I mean, the one movie that I do have on YouTube, Ruby Bridges. And remember that little girl was going into the school and the soldiers was walking into the protector and white folks was hollering and screaming at that baby and hollering, we'll hang you and I'll poison you. I'll poison your food. And in the movie, that little girl didn't eat. She had stopped eating because she was thinking that she would only eat chips, food that her mama bought from the store that was sealed, because she knew that was coming from somewhere else and stuff. But as far as food being cooked and prepared, she wasn't eating and stuff because she was fearing what them folks were saying and stuff. But can you imagine, brother, also, when they was walking him to his trial and hundreds of white men and white boys out there screaming, hang him, kill the nigger, shoot him, hang him, cut him up, just all kind of anti-life slurs and tortures, just threats. And now these same devilish people told they people to flip the script, make black people this savage. Make black people this savage. Change his music, his diet, his habits. Give him all the negative, and he'll meet you halfway. But see, the black man can never be this savage. I don't know. I don't even know an animal in the animal kingdom or the sea life, that could be this savage like white men have been. White women, y'all asses too. So let's not get it twisted. You ain't got the whole world thinking that the black man is a threat. He's dangerous. He's lazy. He's brutal. He's a savage. You ain't got the whole world believing that lie. Some of us do know that Black America is fucking fed up. Now, those of us with the weakest links within our masses, yeah, you done psyched their mind out. You done psyched them. White America done psyched them. They are mentally fried. Yeah, trying to deal with this bullshit right here. Because nobody want to say, hey, look, white folks, look, motherfucking look. Y'all need to help make things right. You need to repent and repay. Because either way it go, we're going to have to do for us. Now, we all can exist on this planet together. Because I promise you, you won't ever get that close to us again. But I digress, ancestors. Yeah, that's... Ooh, boy. Okay, they were shouting, the hundreds of men and boys were shouting, hang him, take him out, kill him, lynch him, roast him, burn him. All kind of, can you imagine all kind of bullshit they were saying? Cut his ears off, cut his Peter off. I want his fingers, I want his tongue, cut his nose. I'm starting the fire right now. I mean, can you imagine? And he's there alone. His family can't even be there with him because they done ran his family out of town. They done threatened them. But the Court of Appeals rejected the motions presented by Wilson, dismissing his argument that prejudiced newspapers' accounts played any part in inciting the public's indignation over Blank's alleged offense. Concerning the second motion, the justices made a brief statement. We are not prepared to say that the court erred in overruling the motion for a change of venue. It is not a mandate that a criminal case can be transferred to another area simply because a move was sought by the defendant, the justices explained. Clearly, in their ruling in Blanks versus Commonwealth, the justices of Kentucky's highest court chose to ignore the obvious, that for decades the mere rumor that a black might have raped a white female created, as Blank's attorney argued, an emotionally charged situation and had led to numerous lynchings, or at the very least to white mobs dominating court procedures, demanding quick justice for black rapists. So, in other words, it is not a mandate that a criminal case can be transferred to another area simply because a move was sought by the defendant. It wasn't simply because a move was sought by the defendant. It was because them motherfuckers was finna come and lynch him. That's why they asked for the change of venue. See, white America with this whole bullshit this whole time. This whole motherfucking time. And see, those of y'all that's done sat in them seats and them positions, and you ain't said nothing, you let them get away with it. You let them do it. But then you want to brag, oh, I worked in the courthouse and in the Department of Justice for 25, 30, 45 years. But what did you do to help black people? Oh, I helped one guy. I would bring him lunch, I would help one guy. I prayed for him. In the opinion of the appeals court, the fact that a hostile mob had met Blanks and the soldiers at the train depot, followed them to the jail, surrounded the jail until Blanks was taken to court, and they crammed into the courtroom throughout the trial, making known its opinion of Blanks' testimony by loud outbursts that had no effect on the outcome of the case. I mean, they sat there and let them hound him from the time he took off running to the time they caught him and walked him to that trial. Black people, white people were still hounding after him, fiending, slobbing, groveling. They wanted to tear him apart, eat him with their bare teeth, just eat him apart and stuff. It's like a wild, ravenous animal. The way they just clamored and just slobbing all while they watching the man hanging in the tree and stuff, and they looking down there with that shiny glimmer of glee in their eyes, and their mouths is wide open, and the little kids is looking like it's the most beautiful ornament they ever seen. Like, what the fuck? Wilson next turned to Governor Bradley in an attempt to save Blanks' life. He was defending Blanks, Wilson informed the governor, without fee or reward, or expectation of any fee or reward, because of a sincere belief that justice must be served in the case. The guilty verdict and death sentence handed the black man had convinced Wilson that mob justice prevailed in Kentucky. And it did. Shit, white folks in Kentucky didn't give a damn about no justice. Hell, why you think they were coming to the jailhouse to take them out? This Bob Blanks case is a case in which Providence tests the soundness of our whole system with the wager of an utterly unimportant human cipher. Bob Blanks is the cipher whose case tests the soundness and the justice of our institutions, as much as if he were the most precious life that ever was thrown in the scale. The lighter the weight that establishes the scale is not true. The easier it is to prove the system unsound, and Bob Blanks' case seems to establish by the lightest possible evidence that the scale of justice is not held evenly in our state. Wilson urged the governor to give Blanks a 10-year prison sentence, since he had admitted under oath to having sex with the young white girl. And then a lot of times they were in relationships. And then the white girl would say, oh, he raped me. Sometimes the white people would kill the white girl and the black guy because how dare you sleep with someone black? Honey, we think we know. We don't know a damn thing. Shit. Somebody go to the library and check out another book to add, because we're going to be on this era for quite a while. I'm not saying how long. Maybe a month. Maybe 2 months. Although swayed by Wilson's compelling arguments, Bradley decided to hear from Graves County officials before making a final decision on the fate of Blanks. He wrote to J.E. Robbins, judge of the Graves County Circuit Court, who had presided over the case, and 2 days later received a lengthy reply. In Robbins' opinion, Blanks had committed rape and had received a fair trial and a just verdict. The judge then appealed to the governor to allow the death sentence to be upheld for the good of the state. Carrying out death sentences, he argued, was the most effective way Bradley could end lynchings in the state. Carrying out death sentences, he argued, was the most effective way Bradley could end lynchings in the state. Many very reputable and good citizens, he explained to the governor, have applauded the outrages committed by the mob because of their belief that the courts will not enforce the law and that executive clemency constantly interferes to prevent the proper punishment of crime. Motherfuckers. Fully aware of Bradley's commitment to uplifting blacks, the judge next said that upholding the death sentence in the Blanks case would in the long run aid Kentucky's black citizens. If Bob Blanks should not be executed but have his punishment commuted or be pardoned, the effect on the colored race in this state would be dreadful. If such action be taken, the life of any colored person who hereafter commits any kind of crime would be very little value to him, for no amount of vigilance on the part of judges and other officers of the law can further restrain the infuriated masses from acts of violence against the colored race. The letter from the judge proved persuasive. Assured that his actions of having the accused taken to Louisville, having him escorted to Mayfield by 50 troops, and bringing in jurors from another county had led to a fair trial for Blanks. Wow. Governor Bradley refused to prevent the execution. Blanks died on the scaffold in Mayfield on April 18, 1899, before a white crowd numbering in the thousands. In the thousands. On December 9th, 1916, Deputy Constable Guthrie Duguid of Murray. Deputy Constable Guthrie Duguid, D-I-U-G-U-I-D, Duguid of Murray was shot and mortally wounded by Lube Martin. Remember Lube? According to the version that several whites told in court, Duguid, a peaceful man, had several run-ins with Martin, and the Negro had gone so far as to threaten to kill him. Duguid, according to this account, was approaching the street when he was attacked by two relatives of Martin, making it easy for Martin to fire 6 shots into his body. Several whites testified that Duguid's dying words were that Martin had, as vowed, killed him. In his own defense, Martin swore that Duguid had, on several occasions, threatened to kill him. In March, after local authorities refused Martin's request to have Duguid quit harassing him, this was in March now, after local authorities refused Martin's request to have Duguid quit harassing him, Martin left Murray but returned 4 times for brief visits. While there in September, Martin ran into Duguid, who drew a gun on him saying, "I'm going to kill you, you black son of a bitch. I've been looking for you all this year and you have been gone." Martin was able to escape by hiding in a building, and he left town immediately thereafter. He remained in Tennessee for 4 months and returned to Murray in December to see a physician. Realizing that it would be impossible to avoid Duguid indefinitely in the small town and that the police had refused to help, Martin carried a pistol for the inevitable confrontation. While walking to his father's house, Martin explained, he came upon Duguid, who reached for his weapon. Martin, however, reached for his gun first and shot Duguid 6 times. The testimony of Ann and Sylvester Martin substantiated this view. The testimony of Ann and Sylvester Martin substantiated this view. After his dramatic, high-publicized trip to Mary, Governor Stanley vowed that Martin would be protected when he returned for trial. 5 weeks after the incident, Martin arrived back in Mary accompanied by members of the Kentucky National Guard. Presiding over the trial was Charles H. Bush. The judge who had demonstrated such little concern for Martin's life that he had ordered the black man returned to Mary so that he could be handed over to the mob. State officials, however, were confident that Martin would now receive a fair trial. They brought in 60 men from Christian County, which they proudly said was not adjacent to Mary, so that 12 of them could be selected to hear the case. Everyone entering the courthouse was searched. After hearing evidence for more than 2 days, the jury deliberated for only an hour before deciding on the death penalty for Martin. Dugard's death statement had been crucial to their decision, the jury foreman explained. Furthermore, the white witnesses had told the truth, and Martin's witnesses, his relatives, had not. Sufficient funds were raised by the NAACP to have the case appealed. The death sentence was affirmed by Kentucky's highest court. Governor Stanley, who received praise for preventing a lynching, now felt that justice had been served. Lou Martin died in the electric chair July the 25th, 1919. Prosperity. Interesting, while applauding Stanley for saving Martin from the lynch mob, the crisis had sounded a note of caution that turned out to be prophetic. Thus, Lou Martin has been saved from the mob, at least temporarily. As to justice for a man who killed his assailant in self-defense, that, even in Kentucky, is quite another story. Yeah. Black Kentuckians should not have been surprised that Governors Bradley and Governor Stanley believed that justice had been served with the execution of Blanks and Martin. Although condemning mob violence and lynchings, they had acknowledged that whites were often frustrated and tried to reassure them that the guilty would be punished to the fullest extent of the law. During Bradley's term, 15 men were put to death by the state, 8 of whom were African Americans. After denouncing the continuation of mob violence against blacks in his message to state lawmakers, Bradley called attention to the subject of rape. Juries have a right, he declared, to sentence not only convicted rapists to death, but also those convicted of attempted rape. The fiend who makes an assault on a defenseless woman with such a hellish purpose in view is equally guilty with who accomplishes his purpose. Why? When half these black men wasn't even guilty of rape? Was it because the white men feared that all the hell and torture and rape and tearing, that they did to black women? They really felt that black men would do that to white women, knowing they know. See, white men know, even today, they know they are the most savage animal there is walking these streets, walking this planet. They know what they've done. They know no other people hold a race to their savagery. I don't care how much you claim it don't exist and you project it on us, black people and other peoples, but that you are not. Shit. For the love of black people. When Yeah, 6 of the 9 men executed during Stanley's terms were black. He was governor for only 3 years and 5 months, resigning to assume a seat in the United States Senate. When staring down the mob in Mary, Stanley said, "I see that the laws are enforced and enforced with vigor. I protect that Negro from mob violence. And I believe in the death penalty too. If cold-blooded murder is committed, then that murderer should pay with his life. But he should die only after 12 men have weighed the evidence carefully, painstakingly, and in fear of their God, and have declared him guilty. He should be a sacrifice upon the altar of the law." Several years after Martin's execution, Stanley debated the famous attorney Clarence Darrow about the death penalty. Stanley took the pro-capital punishment view, saying that it was a protection to society. Both governors, therefore, believed they had done the right thing in the cases. Clearly, Blanks was guilty of having sex with Tenny Bailey. In court, his attorneys argued that Tenny Bailey was considered considerably older than 12 years old, and more important, that she was a prostitute, an inmate or regular attendant at a house of ill fame, and that her reputation for virtue and chastity among those who knew her and among whom she lived was bad. According to the white newspaper, which of course must be viewed with suspicion, when it reported the rape of a white female by a black man, Blanks had said before being put to death that the girl gave her consent to the commission of the deed and that he paid her $1. On the other hand, the evidence against Martin strongly suggests that he was justified in thinking that his life was threatened by the white deputy sheriff. But even if both black men were guilty and the evidence against them overwhelming, how could the governors honestly think that returning them to the same area would result in fair trials? To be sure, the juries were composed of white men from other counties, but they came from Western Kentucky communities that experienced lynchings and attempts to run blacks out of town. These whites' strong emotional feelings about a black raping a young white girl or killing a law officer likely did not deter from the feelings of others in the area. Furthermore, given the racial hostility displayed during the trials, it is not difficult to imagine what would have happened to the white jurymen at either trial if they had voted for acquittal. Probably would have sprung their ass up. Undoubtedly, the presence of the troops prevented lynchings, but their presence was also an indictment of the concept of a fair trial. When commenting on how the law should be allowed to carry out its duty, neither governor expressed any reservations about Afro-Americans being excluded from the jury process. Both Bob Blanks and Luke Martin were convicted by all-white juries during a time in Kentucky when no blacks were included in the pools of jurors. To be sure, Bradley and Stanley had prevented lynchings from happening. But by allowing Blanks and Martin to be tried by all white juries in environments where whites threatened to lynch the men if they were not quickly convicted and executed by the state, they had allowed legal lynching to occur. They had indeed surrendered to the will of the mob. Although claiming to be opposed to lynchings, many white Kentuckians were perfectly content to see blacks legally executed. They failed to question the procedures used in the cases or to ask why trials were not moved from areas where lynchings had been threatened. They must have thought that the absence of blacks from the jury box was as natural as the exclusion of Afro Americans from most other areas of society. Furthermore, few, if any, whites seemed to question the fact that virtually all of the blacks sentenced to death for rape were young, poor, or often illiterate. Whites, in fact, described many of these Afro Americans as being retarded, mentally deficient, and lacking in intelligence. This was as true in the late 1930s as it had been in the 1880s. On occasion, white authorities and community leaders pleaded with the mob to allow justice to take its course. And when a black was accused of rape or murder, justice was swift and sure. Countless numbers of black men were tried in hostile environments. Judges and juries were convinced of their guilt before hearing any evidence. To the satisfaction of many law and order Kentucky white people, the number of lynchings declined in the 20th century. But this coincided with a rise in the number of legal lynchings in the state. Indeed, it must be emphasized that a crucial reason for the decline in lynchings was related to how white Kentuckians consistently manipulated the legal system, ensuring that any black accused of certain crimes received the same punishment as that meted out by the lynch mob. Yeah. On the other hand, of the nearly 100 whites put to death by the state from 1870 to 1940, none of them lost their lives for transgressions against Afro Americans. There would be a few occasions when whites were charged with the rapes or the murders of blacks, but all white juries would not convict their white neighbors of such crimes. They was charged, but they wasn't crying. They wasn't convicted. Yeah, they was charged for it, but they wasn't convicted. Typically, when charged with the murder of a black, a white defendant would say that the black had threatened his life or had somehow offended him or a female relative. In the eyes of the jury, therefore, the white was justified in his claim of self-defense. Cases of whites raping black women rarely was taken to court. According to the Courier Journal, a 16-year-old black girl was raped by a white man in Dishman Mill, not far from Bowling Green, in 1888. Calling the incident a diabolical outrage, the paper noted that during the struggle, the young girl had her clothes torn off. The authorities had a complete description of the man, and it was predicted that he would be caught easily. No further stories exist, however, telling of the ultimate outcome of the incident. At the most, a few whites were tried for detaining a black woman. In fact, as far as can be determined from available data, no man, white or black, was executed in Kentucky for the rape of a black woman. During the 1870s, for example, at least three black men, Thomas Coleman of Bass County, James Brown of Gallatin County, and Joe Sharp of Taylor County, were found guilty of raping black women and sentenced to state prison. None of them, however, was given a life sentence, and all were eventually pardoned by Governor Luke P. Blackburn. The research of several scholars agrees that the decline of lynchings throughout the nation was due in part to the states taking the role of the mob. Writing in the 1930s, James Harmon Chadbourne, Chadbourn, Chadbourne, and Arthur Raper, Raper, said that a pro-lynching sentiment was evident in the judicial process. After a careful examination of white justice meted out to blacks, Raper concluded that a legal lynching was little, if indeed any, improvement over an extra legal lynching. A more recent scholar, Jacqueline Hall is not impressed that the number of lynchings declined in the 20th century as compared with the late 1800s. Many people put to death in the 1920s, she observed, were executed by the state in a manner that shows that they were just as much victims of lynchings as others had been earlier. The unthwarted lynch mob frequently demanded that public officials impose the death sentence in a hasty mockery of a trial. If these legal lynchings were included in the statistics, the death toll would be much higher. Roger Lane, in a study of blacks and violence in Philadelphia, argues that despite discrimination in Philadelphia society, the courts lived up to the idea of equal justice. Lane rejects the conclusion of W.E.B. Du Bois that in Philadelphia, the courts favored the rich over the poor and the whites over the blacks. There's no evidence of significant racial bias in Philadelphia's 19th century court system, or indeed of those in other northern cities in the same period. In terms of either the comparative likelihood of conviction or the severity of sentence for a given offense, the two indices can be measured. Justice was surprisingly colorblind. Although he was talking only about the North, where blacks made up as much a smaller percentage of the total population, his conclusion is doubtful. Lane does acknowledge some racial bias within the legal system, but says it was not significant, though I would imagine a black person going to jail would view it as very significant. And what would make whites in Philadelphia or elsewhere who discriminated against blacks in every way possible decide that within the legal area, they should cast off their prejudices? Their own rationalization of racial discrimination would undoubtedly carry over to the court trials as well. It wasn't an area of our life that they didn't carry their racial. Well, that's true. Just as they decried the number of lynchings in America, black leaders complained that the American legal system, especially in the hands of Southern whites, discriminated against blacks, ensuring that they would be found guilty of alleged crimes. Alleged crimes. Crimes that ain't been proved. Crime with no evidence. Just somebody said, oh, that sound like such and such. Oh, it ran away like such and such. Frederick Douglass observed that Southern society was totally against the black man and that he would be punished, whether right or wrong. Going further, he noted with dismay, no decent white man in the South would pretend that in that region there could be impaneled a jury, black, white, or mixed, which would, in case of proof of the deed, allow a guilty Negro to escape condign punishment. I ain't never seen that word. That's Condign, condign punishment. Francis J. Grimke, a contemporary of Douglass, agreed. Another effect of this race hatred is seen in the undue severity with which Negro criminals are punished by the courts. No mercy is ever shown them, he concluded. Writing in the early 1900s, the prominent black leader, Mary Church Terrell, concurred with the view that black defendants stood little chance of clearing themselves in court. Even those who condone lynching do not pretend to fear the delay or the uncertainty of the law when a guilty Negro is concerned. With the courts of law entirely in the hands of the white man, a guilty Negro could no more extricate himself from the meshes of the law in the South than he could slide from the devilfish's embrace or slip from the anaconda's coils. Miscarriage of justice in the South is possible only when white men transgress the law. Ignoring the many blacks who were executed by the state or who received long prison sentences, many whites took an opposite view, saying that criminals manipulated the legal system by having their trials delayed or moved to other locals, or by pursuing an endless number of appeals. For the most part, the people taking part in lynchings wished ardently to enforce justice, explained North Carolina Judge Walter Clark. The purpose in hanging a man is not to reform him, but to deter others. To have that effect, the punishment must be prompt and certain whenever guilt is clear beyond all reasonable doubt. This principle, which is so often ignored by the courts, is the one which instinctively actuates lynching mobs. The principle is in itself right and just, and courts should act upon it and not leave it to be at once as a motive and a plea for the illegal execution of justice. The state's leading paper, the Courier Journal, voiced its opposition in 1895 to the Blair proposal being debated in Congress, which called for a federal investigation into lynchings. This would only be a waste of time and money, according to the paper. The remedy for this state of things is not obscure. People are pretty generally agreed that the cure lies in a better and more speedy execution of the laws. Members of the legislature could help lynchings by regulating criminal proceedings, as would permit the conviction of a larger percentage of persons notoriously guilty, but who often contrive to escape conviction. The belief that our laws are constituted to facilitate the escape of criminals is undoubtedly growing. Edward L. Ayers, Ayers, argues convincingly that rich whites did in fact avoid persecution, but this was not the case for poor whites, and of course, not for African Americans. Judge Clark's comments clearly apply only to rich white people. Courts are very expensive to the people. Yet in most cases, if a criminal can procure the services of able and skillful counsel, the advantages granted to the prisoner in a trial for a capital offense are such that a verdict in the state is almost impossible, no matter how flagrant the offense. The judge then made another point that applied only to whites. Since Afro-Americans were systematically excluded from serving on juries, the sympathy of the jury for a fellow being on trial for his life will always be stronger than the desire to vindicate the outrage upon society. And any such sympathy can always be readily appealed to by eloquent counsel. Despite numerous comments that the law was lenient on criminals, at least 229 people, 2 of whom were female, were executed by the state of Kentucky between 1872 and 1940. African Americans, composing around 10% of the state's population, accounted for 130. Fully 57% of the people put to death by the state. The figures indicate that except for the decades of the 1870s, 1890s, and 1910s, the number of whites and blacks executed was almost identical. However, it is extremely important to remember 2 points when investigating executions in Kentucky. First, no blacks served on juries. Every Afro-American executed had been found guilty by an all-white jury. We will never know, of course, how many times racism worked in favor of whites when, for example, All white grand juries refused to indict whites for criminal offenses against Afro Americans. Second, since blacks accounted for 57% of executions, but for only 10% of the population, they were greatly overrepresented in the number of people put to death by the state. Clearly, a black stood a significantly greater chance of being executed in Kentucky than did a white person. Many of the whites put to death in the late 1800s were convicted of multiple murders. Ellis Craft and William Neal killed several members of the Gibbons family in December 1881. That's Gibbons. Before dying on the gallows, Craft maintained his innocence, saying that 2 niggers did the crime. In March 1884, Frank Wolford Slagel, Wolford Slagel, was put to death for the murder of 3 men in Somerset. And on July 31st, 1889, Charles Dilger, Dilger, and Harry Smart died on the scaffold in Louisville. Dilger had murdered 2 policemen, and Smart had killed a married couple. In all probability, more than 229 people were executed in Kentucky. It is highly likely, for example, that the first execution after the Civil War occurred before 1872, though data is unavailable for the earlier years. Richard H. Shuck, S-H-U-C-K, Richard H. Shuck, a member of an outlaw band responsible for numerous robberies and murders in Owen and Henry counties in the mid-1870s, dictated his confession while awaiting execution. Although no record confirming his death on the gallows could be found, in all likelihood, he and a number of other gang members were executed. A lack of court records for many cases further complicates the matter. The blacks accused of committing these crimes, just like those who received the death penalty from the state or the mob, were already tried and convicted in the newspapers and in the eyes of the white public. Many of the cases for which the outcome is unknown involved rape. This fact is surprising, since whites usually demanded quick justice for alleged black rapists. In 1885, the Courier Journal reported that Phil Bellmire, Bellmire, was on trial for rape, and that the woman had made a positive identification of him. Nevertheless, the newspaper failed to show whether the black man was put to death, convicted of a lesser crime, or simply set free. Several years later, a Lexington black, Tom Brown, was arrested and charged with the rape of a 4-year-old white girl, but no other details about the incident have been found. Because their trials were held in Lexington and in Louisville, respectively, these 2 black men probably were not lynched, though legal executions of blacks for rapes most surely occurred in both cities. Even though they probably was not lynched, but they were probably legally lynched. According to a newspaper account, a pretty little white girl, Allie Brockham, Brockham, was raped in the Harrodsburg area in 1889. Accused of the crime was John Cunningham, who the paper described as more brute than man. And who, from his appearance, looks to be Darwin's missing link. After being captured, he was taken to jail over the protest of some of the men in the mob. They was already there. According to the paper, Allie Brockham and several other girls identified Cunningham, and he confessed to the crime. But even in this case, which is similar to many that ended in lynchings, the outcome is unknown. If these 3 men were not executed by the state, their relatively light sentences undoubtedly reinforced the view of mob members that they must take the law into their own hands. As we have seen, whites were quick to respond to incidents in which blacks had murdered whites. On Christmas Day, 1882, Charles Weir killed a white man who attempted to enter a dance hall being held by blacks. Weir, like many other Negroes found in such a predicament, pleaded self-defense. The outcome of the case is unknown. In February 1895, Governor John Y. Brown signed the death warrant for a March 15th execution of John Young, who had murdered another black. There's no indication of the outcome, even though Governor Brown had demonstrated in the past a willingness to allow executions to happen. Perhaps even more of a puzzle in this case is the case of Johnson Howe, Johnson Howe, Howe, who was charged with killing a police officer in 1897. Nothing can be found to indicate whether Howe was lynched, executed, or found not guilty. While the vast majority of lynchings took place in Western Kentucky, the greatest number of legal lynchings, 30%, occurred in Louisville and Jefferson County, or Lexington and Fayette County. Jefferson County, located in Region 3, had 44 executions. Fayette in Region 4 had 21. These counties are followed by two other counties with 8 executions each. This is not surprising that whites in urban areas were determined to prevent lynching and took pride in maintaining law and order. In fact, over the years, prisoners from other areas were rushed to Lexington or Louisville to prevent their being lynched. Of the 229 people legally executed, 197 were for murder, 31 was for rape, and 1 was for other causes, which turned out to be armed robbery. That relatively few people were put to death for rape, the offense that whites most often associated with blacks, can be accounted for in several ways. Since whites consistently resorted to lynchings to avenge rape of their women, very few blacks accused of assaulting females were tried in the courts, especially during the late 19th century. Also, the vast majority of whites convicted of rape were sentenced to prison, not death. A number of blacks were executed for the deaths of members of their own race. As a general rule, these involved men spurned as lovers who in a fit of anger killed their wives or girlfriends. To be sure, whites were also put to death for the murder of their wives or sweethearts. But because of legal lynchings, trials of blacks were usually disposed of in a hasty manner. Not at all like the trials of whites. Indeed, whites could at least hope that the men on the jury would be sympathetic to them. A typical case of a black man killing a woman involved Clarence Williams of Paris. Outraged over seeing his common-law wife, Josie Tillman, talking to another man, Williams shot her 3 times. Williams' all-white jury deliberated only 20 minutes before finding him guilty and sentencing him to death. On the very same day that Bob Blanks died in Mayfield, another black man, Will Tutt, Tutt, was executed for the murder of his wife. Tutt killed her for attending a baseball game in another city without his permission. The events surrounding the execution of George Miller on April 30th, 1874, became commonplace until well into the 20th century. As a reporter of the Louisville Commercial explained, if a stranger had traveled this morning from daylight until noon upon any or all of the roads leading into Springfield, Kentucky, he would have believed that a greater showman than Barnum had pitched his tent in that village. Somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people came by buggies, stagecoaches, carriages, horseback, and foot to witness the hanging of Miller, who had been convicted of killing his former master. between 5,000 and 10,000. They were coming all kind of ways. They were coming on the stagecoach, on the carriage, on the horse, on cows, camels. Some of them were walking. Any kind of way they could get there. Them white folks would get there. They wanted to see that hanging. I mean, 5,000 to 10,000 people just standing there waiting on a hanging. After the hanging, all of the salons did a booming business, even though many in the crowd had already overindulged before the main event. So before they even had the hanging and stuff, the lynching, most of their ass had already got drunk, was just out of their mind and stuff. The reporter for the commercial, unlike most who would write about such events, was disgusted by the public execution. Not one person, not one person present went home wiser, unless indeed it is the wisdom to know that a man in good health, sound in body and mind, weighing 175 pounds, can live just 8 minutes when suspended at the end of a rope with a noose around his neck. He ended with a few words for people prone to lawless activities. For a successful hanging, artistically done, I commend all criminals to the ministering officers of Washington County. Public executions in late 19th century Kentucky were spectator sports, drawing crowds that rivaled attendance at the Kentucky Derby. All of the newspapers devoted extensive coverage to the executions. The reporters thoroughly enjoyed writing that the condemned had expiated for his crime. The reporters thoroughly enjoyed writing that the condemned had expiated for his crime. E-X-P-I-A-T-E-D, expiated. This, of course, was part of the national fascination with death. The newspapers gave details about the last meal, the state of mind of the condemned, and whether or not he confessed his crime to local officers and God before leaving the cell for the last time. Yeah, they made that part sensational, so the people wanted to know. The people wanted to know. Yep, for the last time. So they can have more to talk about, more to gossip about. I guess they felt like it was more of a bond. They was really bonding to know these things. And even some movies that I've seen, they would do that. Like Ted Bundy. They would give him his last meal and last cigarette, whatever he wanted. Mm-hmm. Yep, and then they would walk him for the last walk. And okay, let's continue here. This, of course, was part of the national fascination with death. The newspaper gave details about the last meal, the state of mind of the condemned, and whether or not he confessed his crime with the local law officers and God before leaving the cell for the last time. White reporters often spoke with admiration of how blacks faced death. The highly racist Mayfield Monitor headlined the execution of Bob Brown. He met death in a composed and heroic manner after an eloquent talk to 3,000 spectators. Brown's expiation for the murder of a white man was perhaps the most remarkable hanging witness in this county for years and the most successful as well. According to the paper, Brown acted and looked successful. According to the paper, Brown acted and looked it as he left the jail, more like a man on his way to a marriage feast than to his own hanging. With the noose around his neck, Brown spoke to the huge throng for more than an hour, advising them to let whiskey, gambling, and downfalling women severely alone. Several years later in Richmond, condemned killer William Taylor spoke for 11 minutes to the crowd, concluding with some words of wisdom. My advice to both young and old is to leave whiskey alone. My advice to friends that I leave behind is not to follow the steps which lead to where I am going. I am 26 years of age, and this is the first and only crime that I ever committed. Now that I am about to be ushered into the presence of death by the laws of man, I feel that the laws of society that inflict the death penalty for murder are just, and the penalty I am about to pay is merited. I am going home to die no more. While executions for murder were on occasion held in carnival-like environments, the execution of a black for rape often drew boisterous crowds, determined to lynch the condemned man because they believed that a simple hanging was too mild for such a heinous offense. We'll finish this tomorrow. Yeah, we'll finish this chapter here tomorrow. Peace and power to the people.